Good afternoon. I think we can now start our webinar. We have already more than 100 participants, and I hope that more will join after our introductory remarks. I would like to welcome all participants, all panelists, and of course, also I would like to thank our technical staff for support and for all taking care on all technical issues to make it smooth. Today's we have general and introductory training on research infrastructures. This is a component of Horizon Europe, which is under Excellent Science, Pillar 1 of Horizon Europe. And we would like to provide you more information about this program, as well as on opportunities for participation. My name is Alexander Rakowski. I'm a team leader of a group of experts which are working in Technical Assistance Project Turkey in Horizon 2020. This project is jointly funded by Turkish government and European Commission. And our main objective is to increase participation of Turkey in Turkish organizations in Horizon 2020. Now, of course, we are targeting on Horizon Europe. Contracting authority of our project is Ministry of Industry and Technology, Republic of Turkey, and recipient of assistance is TÜBİTAK. So before I will give the floor to Serhat Melik, I would like to make some technical comments. Please ask your questions through questions and answer sections of Zoom. We will try to answer, or our experts will answer your questions during their presentation or after each presentation. We have time for question-answer session, so let's make it more interactive, even though we are organizing it in virtual space. Second information is that we have interpretation, so for those of you who prefer to listen to Turkish language, you can use button of interpretation button and to select Turkish language. So I don't want to take more of your time, and now I would like to ask Serhat Melik, who is National NCP Coordinator in Turkey, for a couple of introductory remarks. Serhat, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Alexander. Good afternoon, everyone. Dear representatives of European Commission, distinguished researchers from both academia and private sector. My name is Serhat Melik. I am working in the Scientific and Technological Research Council of Turkey and acting as the NCP coordinator for Horizon Europe program in Turkey. It is a great pleasure for us to welcome you our general training on Horizon Europe Research Infrastructures event. First of all, we hope that you are all in good health. We are sorry that we had to hold the event online instead of face-to-face, but in the near future, we also hope that we could organize information events like this physically again. As you may know, Turkey has been a close partner to European Union, especially in research and innovation area, and we have been participating as an associated country to framework programs since FP6. During this time, actually, Turkish research area is becoming better aligned with European research area and have made significant leap for a productive transformation of both research innovation ecosystem in recent years. Also, as you may know, with the launch of Horizon Europe, Turkey is in the process of participating as an associated partner to the new program. Negotiation process is now finalized, and you may heard from the news in the 27th of October, Turkey signed the association agreement, and now we are waiting the completion of the rest of the procedure. Actually, this is a great opportunity for us to continue and deepen our cooperation in science, research, and innovation, which will focusing on our common priorities, particularly in related to European Green Deal, and also to, let's say, provide and sustain green and transition. Just to inform you that As stated in the general annex of Horizon Europe Work Program, the Horizon 2020 associated countries who are negotiating association to the Horizon Europe, including Turkey, are also eligible to apply to the calls of Horizon Europe. So please do not hesitate or cooperate or proposal for the upcoming calls. Additionally, framework programs have the greatest leverage for us effect for harmonizing our national research and innovation system to European research area via funding cross-national partnership activities, harmonizing actors and activities across Europe. Actually, Turkey is currently following the European Open Science Cloud Partnership Steering Committee meetings as an observer, and we are also interested in to take part in European Open Science Cloud Partnership in the near future. As TÜBİTAK, we are responsible from the general coordination of Horizon Europe within Turkey. So we would like to increase and widen participation of Turkey in Horizon Europe and maximize the benefits to be utilized from the program. In the last 2 years, we have received a great progress through dissemination and coordination of Horizon activities. So similarly today, we have honored to organize the training on research infrastructure under Turkey in Horizon 2020 Phase 2 Technical Assistance Project. So the event is planned to be an introductory event targeting potential participants in Horizon Europe Framework Program with little or no experience, as well as more experienced researchers that would like to learn about the topics related to research infrastructures. The event will share information about a European Strategy Forum for Research Infrastructures, you may already know as ESFRI, or European Research Infrastructure Consortia, you already know as ERIC. The event will also focus on the 2022 research infrastructure topics under the Pillar 1, Excellent Science, which is already mentioned by Alexander. So I would like to thank Executive Secretary of ESFRI, Dominique Sobczak, and Agnes Robin from DG Research Innovation for their valuable presence as a speaker. Also, I thank Professor Dr. Murat Özgören for his presence and valuable contribution about the updates about Turkey's domain. Finally, I also would like to thank you very much, Dimitros Papayorio, for the description of the research innovation topics. Thank you all for you joining us to our event, and I hope that you will benefit most from the topics described. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Serhat, for this introductory remarks. And now I think we will move directly to Professor Nurgan Özgören, Turkish ESFRI delegate, for his news on research infrastructure domain from Turkish perspective.
Thank you, Alexander. I would like to thank also Serhat Melik for his introductory remarks. And I'm so glad to be part of this event because we've been waiting for this event for such a long time. How long? I've been part of ESFRI for over, I think this is my 14th year. So I'm becoming one of those semi-dinosaurs in the field of research infrastructures. I've been also very lucky to be for 3 consecutive years the chair of Health and Foods Strategy Working Group on behalf of ESFRI, on behalf of all of European countries. So speaking about that, being from an associate country, we are fully eligible in this landscape. I've been an example for that I was part of all of the groups, implementation groups and other working groups of ESFRI. So I call my friends also to be more active in this field, regardless of Turkey being an associate member. But it's so great to hear that we have also participated in this new Horizon program, and we will be more active. What type of activities? Firstly, ESFRI is not only one domain of research activity. It's more of highways of research. So once we establish these highways and platforms, the research activities go on much easier. Turkey had been more active in people's research, more of scientists themselves. But now it's time for Turkey to participate in institutions and also larger scale research facilities. I'm so honored to say that we are now very active in 5 of the working groups of ESFRI, namely the digital, the environment, health and food, the physical sciences and social domain. We do have now experts in every group, and they're all participating on behalf of Turkish researchers for making it a much easier operation. The smart implementation that we've been hearing from ESFRI side for many years is possible when all of the countries across Europe are actively participating in projects. And Turkey had been a bit shy, besides the excellent researchers, to be more active in the research infrastructures. And so for that reason, we think Turkey should participate more on the Southeastern European research area and as part of European research area, because the Southeastern European research area is also lagging behind the Western and Central European countries. Having said that, I think all of MENA region and also this geographical advantage of Turkey being a very active member for Asian countries, Turkic countries, and larger communities, Turkey could serve in a number of projects, especially in geographical domain. Not only geographical domain, but the thematic domain. Turkey has unique opportunities. So, for instance, that's why Turkey is now very active in environmental projects and biobanking and so on. So the famous societal challenges being raised by the ESFRI communities, Turkey was very active during COVID pandemic, trying to develop some preventive measures as well as vaccination efforts and all the other efforts. Turkey is still active. So such big societal challenges should raise the awareness for the need of united research infrastructures. The digital divide between the rest of the world and Europe would be easily overcome by means of uniting with EIRG groups. And Turkey is very active with PRACE and high performance computing, and very recently we have established our support for the PRACE project. Turkey is lucky because of the sun, so the EU Solaris is also being supported because Turkey wants to commit more on the green energy deals. The food is so critical, having the Fertile Crescent and some of the earliest farming communities of the entire world. Turkey knows and acknowledges the smart move on the food domain, so Metro Food is supported politically on the Turkish landscape. The biobanking has been very active. One of the largest genomic research centers in this part of Europe is in Turkey, in Izmir. IBG is representing all of Turkish research communities on behalf of biobanking. So these are some of the projects that we politically support. But of course, on EPOS, the European Plate Observation Systems for earthquake monitoring, and so many more projects have always been supported by Turkish communities. Probably it's up to us to organize more of the Turkish landscape to serve better for European groups and communities. That's why I'm so glad to tell that 6550, the Turkish Research Infrastructures law has passed. And now we are ready with 7 major large-scale research infrastructures and about 21 large-scale research labs that are becoming part of the research landscape. So we are going to open up this research landscape of Turkey into European researchers' landscape by means of publishing our roadmap. We've been actually preparing this roadmap for some months now, and it's almost finished. And in a few months, we'll be highlighting this roadmap. The roadmap will enable S3 communities and other Horizon communities to see what's available in Turkey in terms of not only universities, academic life, and research institutes, but in some cases industrial parks and techno parks, because Turkey also believes in smart innovation with the societal role to establish the smart specialization. Having said that, we are soon going to be publishing this roadmap, and there we will clearly engage with European partners. Today you will have lots of questions. For that, infra.arges@tübitak.gov.tr will be for your long-term questions to be answered. Some of the questions would need for us to study and tell you in exact way how we can engage with European communities. But I think Turkey's involvement in these large-scale research infrastructures will not only serve Turkey, but definitely Southeastern Europe, MENA, but also in general in large European communities, because Turkey has some very strong young researchers with very strong female scientists and strong industry awaiting for smart services. For instance, for wind energy, for nuclear facilities of new Green Deal, and for other research areas, Turkey is also going to be supporting the research facilities by means of small industries and so on. So I would like to welcome you all, because after myself, you are going to be hearing my beloved colleagues like Dominique and the others to welcome me on behalf of S3 for the projects and the legal status, financial status, and also later on how Turkey could engage in those projects with the new calls. So thank you again for being with us.
Thank you very much, Professor Özgüren, for presenting this important element, adding this important element to overall research and innovation landscape. Research infrastructures is growing importance and growing need in cooperation with EU. So now we would like to move to EU to present you EU perspective of S3. And I would like to ask, we have today with us two officers representing European Commission. So I would like now to ask Dominic Sobczak to take the floor and present European Strategy Forum on Research Infrastructure.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Thank you very much, Alexander and Murat, for these very kind introductions. I'm delighted really today to be able to speak to you and share with you some more broad policy, research infrastructure policy considerations at European level that includes the European Strategy Forum on Research Infrastructures, but also goes a little bit more broadly, because these are actually very important to understand in order to be able to see the context, the bigger context of the different topics and the different calls that we have under Horizon Europe. The Research Infrastructure Program under Horizon 2020 earlier 7th framework program and now Horizon Europe is actually closely related with the research infrastructure policy developments, because we are dealing here very often with large-scale organizations that we are building over time. And due to this, these topics cannot be, or many of these topics cannot really be seen in abstraction from what's going on at the policymaking level. So my task today will be to provide you quite briefly with this broad context. And I would like to start, okay, now I need to see how the slides, okay, slides change, wonderful. And I would like to first start actually by telling you a little bit the journey that we have made in the last 20 years, because we need to go back a little bit in time in order to see what we wanted to achieve with research infrastructures at European level. At the beginning of the century, we had basically the national facilities and some international organizations, very well known like CERN and others, but we broadly had a fragmented and rather uncoordinated landscape. When the European Research Area, the first idea of the European Research Area emerged in 2000, we observed that in order that, first of all, there was a consensus that research infrastructures are really the backbone for excellent science. So in order to speak about excellent science at European level, and in order to speak about the excellence of the European Research Area, we need to make sure that we have the necessary research infrastructures at European level to serve our scientists, to determine our scientific future. As the landscape was quite fragmented and we had no mechanism, it was decided that we actually need to design a mechanism at the European level that would help us to, first of all, pool resources of all the countries that are in the EU, but also associated countries. As Murat mentioned, associated countries as part of the European Research Area have been part of that process since the very beginning. Pooling resources was one dimension, because research infrastructures are becoming more complex and demanding to establish, but also because you have all kinds of competences and experience and expertise all around Europe that is needed to be pulled together. Second, the facilities that were there at national level in the individual member states and associated countries were actually quite close to the international community. So another challenge was to open access to these so that we could address the inequalities in access to top facilities, and we could have researchers from all corners of the European Research Area to be able to have access to the best facilities that are available at global level. Second and third, there was an issue of the use of research infrastructures and their further development. In order to address the fragmentation of the landscape and avoiding any duplication of the effort, it was important to actually coordinate what we do on research infrastructures. Connecting national communities was another important objective, because only when we are together, when we do things together, we can be stronger. And finally, the exchange of best practice was another dimension that was quite important 20 years ago when we were looking at the creation of the European Research Area. Exchanging of best practices between the research infrastructures themselves, but also among countries, among national governments that design their own national policies for research infrastructures and decide on funding. So basically, we have, when we look at research infrastructures and the development of research infrastructures in Europe, we have three major actors or types of actors. We have the member states and associated countries with the national priorities, funding across the life cycle, and their own scientific communities, of course, that are both national and international. We have the Commission that at the European level provides support to research infrastructure policies with very substantial amount of funding that can go to different activities that have a clear European added value, and also targeted support to some individual research infrastructures. And we have the European Strategy for Urban Research Infrastructures that identifies the priorities through a dialogue between the research community, the national government, and the European Commission. Identifies common priorities in which we all agree to invest. Helps coordination and helps incubating new facilities at the European level. So all these three actors kind of play together game, thanks to which over the 20 years we have made very substantial progress in developing the landscape for European research infrastructures. Now, of course, back in 2000, we had the countries, we had the Commission, we didn't have ESFRI. ESFRI was actually a product, let's put it like this, of the initial consideration on what we need at European level. ESFRI was a means to establish a mechanism, a platform where member states and the Commission and the scientific community could actually speak to each other on research infrastructure priorities. So where we are now, so currently, 20 years later, we already have quite a well interconnected landscape of research infrastructures in Europe. First of all, we have the European Array, so something that was largely missing at the beginning of the European research area, incubated through the ESFRI roadmap. And right now, with the 2021 roadmap, we have 63 facilities already identified. 41 of them are implemented. 22 are still projects that are currently being implemented, or they are in the preparatory phase. Across 6 broad thematic areas, they have different characteristics, single-sided and distributed. And altogether, they have over 20 billion euro of investment that are needed in these facilities over the life cycle. Some of them have also international membership, like Square Kilometer Array, but there are others. And of course, many of them have also associated countries and members. And as Murat mentioned, Turkey is eager to join some of them in the near future. We also have set up a unique legal framework, which is the European Research Infrastructure Consortium. There are already 19 of those. I will not provide any details on that because there is a dedicated presentation to this very important framework by Agnes a bit later on. My colleague from the Commission, Agnes Robin. And then we have the European Research Infrastructure Network, also something that has not really existed 20 years ago. They were largely set up through the EU framework program, through so-called integrating activities that had joint research activities, networking, and also access provision. So with these instruments, we have tried to deal with the challenge of the national facilities being close to international users. In Horizon 2020, we have supported around 90 of those networks, and something like 37,000 researchers actually benefited from funding from the EU to access the facilities, research laboratories, or resources located in other countries. We, of course, have still much better developed national facilities and labs of different scale, very often connected to national roadmaps. Many of them are nodes of the European Array, as I mentioned, that were incubated largely through the ESFRI roadmap. And they also have additional funding for capacity building, in particular through the structural funds. So now, as I was asked to provide a bit more information on ESFRI itself and how it works. So let's start by discussing a little bit on what ESFRI is. So first of all, it is important to know that ESFRI is an informal body. It's an informal body that provides advice to the Council, and in particular to the Competitiveness Council configuration of the Council of the European Union. So it provides directly advice to the ministers. It also provides actually advice to the Commission in different ways, but its main mandate is to provide advice to the Council of Ministers. It is composed of representatives of member states and associated countries, and the European Commission. And typically, the representatives of member states and associated countries are either ministerial representatives or representatives of the scientific community. It is a platform where there is a real opportunity to talk. And this is actually can sound a little bit soft, but it's an extremely important mechanism and an extremely important issue and virtue of ESFRI that it creates a space for discussion. Through this discussion and through the different processes that it put in place, it is an incubator of new research infrastructures where the member states and the associated countries structure their priorities, negotiate and agree on common investment. Finally, over the years, ESFRI has actually gathered a lot of knowledge on research infrastructure policy and a lot of competence among its members and the experts that help ESFRI work. And therefore, it has developed into a true knowledge hub on research infrastructures and research infrastructure policy. With the most impactful deliverable, which is the S3 roadmap, where it sets standards for roadmap methodology and is a reference not only in Europe, but also very often globally. It also provides policy analysis and advice and information on key issues. And here, a good example is a COVID-19 website or resource that was developed by S3 when the pandemic broke out, to put in one place, together in one place, the information on the available research infrastructure services to fight COVID. With regards to the formal mandate of S3, it is has been set up in 2002. The mandates have been evolving and have been expanding over the years. Initially, it was set up to support a coherent and strategy-led approach to policymaking on research infrastructures to facilitate multilateral initiatives. Actually, only in 2004, it received a mandate to establish a European roadmap for research infrastructures. And of course, you know, the first roadmap was in 2006, and there were 5 more roadmaps that followed up until this day. With the research infrastructures appearing on the roadmap and going through the life cycle, going through the preparatory phase and making an effort to get implemented, to get really put in place, S3 was also asked to follow up the implementation of these projects, not to leave them alone completely, but to try to help them through the most difficult parts or the moments in their life cycle to get fully implemented and provide the services to the scientific communities. There has been also a very particular mandate related to the European Research Area Roadmap that was developed in 2015 to follow the implementation of a particular priority called 2B that was dedicated to research infrastructures on that roadmap. So I took care of that. Now, in order to understand how S3 works, this is also useful to understand at least some of the calls and topics that we have in Horizon Europe and that we have had in the past in the previous framework programs, is the life cycle approach to research infrastructures, which has been adopted at the European level, and it largely determines the way we work with research infrastructures. So when you look at the life cycle, we first have the concept development, and that's typically part of the life cycle which is developed by the scientific communities themselves, together with the design study, where a scientific community sees the need to establish a research infrastructure or to upgrade the existing facility. It then has to go through a design to understand how to do it, how much it would cost, what would be needed, basically to set up such a new research infrastructure as an individual organization. These processes can be supported financially by member states or through the framework program as well, but this is still the level where the scientific communities normally work on their own. Then, between the design and the preparatory phase, this is a moment where funding bodies come in and political decision makers come in. This is also the moment where new proposals, when they think they would like to become a European research infrastructure and they see that they can get support from the countries, they apply to the S3 roadmap. When there is a successful application to the S3 roadmap, then such a research infrastructure project identified as priority at European level enters a preparation phase, which has a number of features and is actually defined by so-called minimal requirements that you can find for each of the phases of the life cycle, or actually the phases between 2 and 5, in the S3 roadmap guide. Because S3 very closely follows these minimal key requirements in assessment of where a research infrastructure project fits in terms of how advanced it is in its life cycle, how advanced it is in its development. The research infrastructures are incubated through the S3 roadmap, through their preparation and implementation phase. And at the end of their implementation phase, if they are successful, they should normally become operational or have advanced construction. And then they can be in the roadmap identified as research infrastructures that have been successfully implemented and become S3 landmarks. and then they move to operation. Of course, there is a final phase, like for everything in life, where it needs to be considered if the research infrastructure is still relevant to continue. It should be upgraded, dismantled, or decommissioned, or repurposed, etc. But this is the part of the life cycle with which as the landscape of research infrastructures in Europe is still relatively young at the level of the pan-European facilities, the termination phase is still one area where we are not working very intensively on. Let's put it like that. When you look at the thematic coverage of ESFRI, it is very broad. It covers 6 broad scientific fields: social and cultural innovation, environment, data computing and digital research infrastructures, health and food, energy, as well as physical science and engineering. And these broad scientific areas are reflected by dedicated strategy working groups that operate at ESFRI level. There's also one horizontal group, which is called the implementation group, that deals transversally with the governance issues or implementation issues of research infrastructure organizations. Now, looking at the ESFRI roadmaps themselves, as I mentioned, there were 2 cycles that started in 2006. The first cycle of the roadmaps was so-called the orange period, from the color that we use for the cover. And these were the roadmaps of 2006, 2008, and 2010, that altogether contained 48 projects and required a major financial investment of around 20 billion euro to get all of them implemented. Then there was a focus between 2010 and 2016. The focus was really on implementation, because it was important in order to get these new initiatives off the ground and to have them made operational as soon as possible so that they could really serve European clients. And then the second cycle of the roadmap came with the roadmaps in 2016, 2018, and now the update is 2021, which has already been approved by ESFRI and will be publicly presented early December at the Slovenian presidency conference launching the roadmap. These, in the second cycle, we focused more on implementation of the previous facilities, but also on identifying new priorities that would already be complementary to the landscape that has already been developed through the first cycle of the roadmaps. And there also, for all the new projects that were proposed to this roadmap, there is a much more comprehensive evaluation methodology, and the level of ambition, the level of maturity that these research infrastructures must demonstrate is much higher. The roadmap itself also became more comprehensive, so it does not only contain a list of projects and a list of landmarks, but also has a sizable strategy report giving the broader directions for the future of the research infrastructure policy and identifying the main challenges for research infrastructure in Europe, but also it contains a voluminous landscape analysis presenting the facilities that exist in Europe and presenting the main trends in European research infrastructures. And of course presents details of the ESFRI landmarks and ESFRI projects. Now here you have figures of 37 ESFRI landmarks, which were there in 2019, and 18 ESFRI projects. In 2021, we already have the process finished. We have more of the projects and more of the landmarks already in the roadmap. So altogether, this year we identified 4 new landmarks. So these are the research infrastructures from the previous roadmap that became implemented, and some of them already became operational, so they became landmarks, 4 of those. And also we have, and these were identified from the 18 projects that were ongoing. And now also we added 11 completely new projects that submitted a proposal to ESFRI this year. Or actually the submission of the proposal was last year, but the evaluation process was concluded this year. And altogether we have now 22 projects that are of research infrastructures in the making, and 41 landmarks, which are the established research infrastructures. When you now look a little bit more globally at the ESFRI roadmap, it has been since the very beginning a very ambitious investment agenda. You can already see that the very first roadmap in 2006, which identified the first European priorities for research infrastructures, included 35 projects and already required a level of investment of around 14 billion euros. Now, over the years, kind of typically, these figures were increasing. So here you can see on the left-hand side on the graph, you can see for each year, the green line is the new RIs that were admitted in each of the roadmaps up until the one in 2021. And you can see also the rising total number of research infrastructures on the road. Now, of course, if you sum up 35 with all the new ones between 2008 and 2021, you end up with a number which is higher than 63. But I would say naturally, not all the research infrastructure projects that entered the roadmap actually were implemented. For some of them, there was a decision not to pursue them any longer for various reasons. And some of them also got repurposed or brought together with other RIs. So in the end, we have currently 63 RIs on the roadmap in total. From the point of view of the investments that are required or that have been required to bring all these infrastructures to life and make them operational, I mentioned already the first roadmap was an ambitious investment agenda with some 14 billion euro needed for them to get realized. And that has been increasing over the years with new projects entering the roadmap. You can see a drop here in 2015, and this was the first roadmap of the second cycle. And this drop was related to two factors. First of all, some projects that entered the roadmap in 2006, 8, and 10 were decided not to be followed. And second of all, for some other projects, there were a couple of projects that were downscaled. And therefore, the total number of investments needed was actually lower in 2016 for the entire roadmap than in 2010. Since then, and also because the prices of everything have been increasing, so the cost of implementing in the individual RIs have been increasing, and the total number of RIs has been increasing. This number has now grew to 25 billion, to almost 25 billion euro. So these are the investments that are needed for these infrastructures to be operational throughout their life cycle, well, basically from the design study phase to the beginning of operations. Some of these investments have already been made, but some of them will need to be made over the next years. What is important also, and what we have observed when we were working on monitoring of the European research area and implementation of the ERA roadmap from 2015, is that over the years, since 2016 in particular, and since the time that the first ERIC appeared on the landscape, following the ERIC regulation, we see that the number of members of research infrastructures is actually steadily increasing. And there's also the political support for new projects that enter the roadmap has also been steadily increasing. And that clearly shows that the structuring that we have done for the S3 roadmap has made the research infrastructures more inclusive over the years. It benefits, of course, the larger countries as well, but primarily benefits the smaller countries that now have the opportunity to be part of European endeavors and to be members of research infrastructures that are very often leaders at global level in a particular field. I'm going closely to the end shortly. So in terms of the S3 strategic role in practice, so what practically we have out of this, out of the fact that S3 operates over these 20 years or has operated over these 20 years, and apart, of course, from the roadmap and the research infrastructures that are a very tangible result. First of all, the roadmap itself identifies scientific priorities and, as I mentioned, facilitates commitment and access to funds. So it helps the scientific communities that are in the beginning, at the origin of an idea to set up a research infrastructure, help them actually realize their dreams and fulfill their scientific needs. It facilitates access to other sources of funding than the national budget, like, for example, structural funds or funding from the European Investment Bank. There is a lot of analytical work ongoing at Esri as well, where we can test in advance different concepts related to research infrastructure policy, and there Esri either responds to a concrete request from the Council of Ministers, and there are a number of those listed here over the years that were initiated through a mandate given to Esri or a request given to Esri by the Council of Ministers, but also its own initiatives related to socioeconomic impact linked with the industry or other issues of broader interest. Now, Esri, of course, also supported the implementation of the ERA roadmap, and now with the new ERA, with the renewed ERA, it will also support the implementation of the ERA policy agenda. But also it provides visibility to European RIs, which is something that should not be underestimated, and facilitates links of European RIs with other partners in the EU or internationally. On the side of the Commission, apart from, of course, providing a substantial amount of funding to research infrastructures on the Esri roadmap and in other ways to support the policy that we have and we are trying to implement, we are a full member of Esri and provide the Esri Secretariat. The funding I already mentioned, we fund the RI development across the life cycle. This is the framework program, but also structural funding from sector programs as well. We fund integration and access to RI, so that again goes back to the framework program, and you can see all these actions are continued in Horizon Europe. Of course, we try to develop different elements of policy, research infrastructure policy, and this is the ERA clinical framework. These are just some examples. A policy for long-term sustainability of research infrastructures, or a charter for access to research infrastructures. And we have a number of policy support actions that are then very useful for research infrastructures themselves, but also for national governments to improve and make more effective their own research infrastructure policies. Now, very briefly on Horizon Europe, because this is the main part of the day. This is the main purpose of your meeting today, and it will be presented in much more detail from the research infrastructure part in the second part of the meeting. Research infrastructures, as was mentioned earlier, are in Pillar 1, excellent science. There are 4 particular intervention areas, which is consolidating and, or as we call them right now, destinations, very often as well, when you look at the structure of the work program. So the first one is consolidating and developing the landscape of European research infrastructure. So here we work on development of research infrastructures as institutions, from the design phase to the implementation phase. The second one is on opening, integrating, and connecting research infrastructures, targeting the operational infrastructures, national ones and the European ones, to try to help them to work better together, and to provide also access to users from around Europe and also globally, actually. The third intervention area, the third broad pillar of our activities is fostering the innovation potential of research infrastructures and different activities for innovation and training. So here we support technology development, so progressing the excellence or improving the excellence of research infrastructures and of their services. And the fourth one targets support to research infrastructure policy and also international cooperation. For all these activities, we have a total budget of around 2.4 billion euros, which is pretty much the same as the budget for Horizon 2020. However, the scope of activities that are covered by the research infrastructure program right now is actually significantly broader, also due to the fact that we have a fully recognized and operational European Open Science Cloud now, than it has been in Horizon 2020. So we also have to be honest with each other that we need to do more, or significantly more, with pretty much the same amount of money, which of course introduces some additional constraints. So Thank you very much for staying with me through this introduction. If you have any questions, I'm happy to share some more insights with you. Thanks.
Thank you, Dominic. I forgot to introduce you as an S3 Executive Secretary, which might be important for our participant. I see question. Can you see the question, or would you like me to read it?
Yes, I can read it.
Okay.
All the S3 facilities, those European facilities, have access programs. So as a researcher, you can access these facilities without any problem. The challenge that can be there is the challenge of funding. So these research infrastructures normally operate what we call based on excellence-based open access. So they invite user projects to propose their activities. And then they evaluate whether the research proposal is of sufficient quality to grant access, because of course there is significantly more demand for access than the supply of access. So once it is evaluated positively, normally you can access a research infrastructure. Then, as I said, the question is also funding. Do you have your own fund because of a grant or resources of your own organization? Or if not, then some of these facilities are part of the European funded transnational access network. And then you could get funding also from the EU to access a particular research infrastructure. The landmark status. No, let's first. Is there any chance of companies to get a grant? Well, that depends for what. Companies are fully eligible under Horizon Europe, under every part of the program. So if the activities of the company are relevant for a particular call, then of course it is possible for a company to be a member of the consortium. Then a question of the landmark. Okay, so landmarks are defined actually in the S3 roadmap. So if you open the S3 roadmap, you can read the definition of a landmark. The main idea of a landmark is that this is a research infrastructure that has been incubated through the S3 roadmap process, and it has reached the implementation phase successfully. So it has established a legal entity, for example, as an ERIC or some other form of legal entity, and it is under advanced construction or already operational and providing services. And this, as a facility that has been incubated through the S3 roadmap, it is let's say a kind of a pillar of competitiveness in research infrastructures in a given field of science. So that this is kind of a European reference in research infrastructures as an organization in that particular field. I don't see any, sorry for being self-efficient with the questions. I don't see any more questions. If you anyone else has any more, of course, I'll be happy.
Maybe there will be some more. If you have time to stay with us, please stay with us some more time.
I will unfortunately have to leave because I have a meeting at 2 o'clock our time, 4 o'clock your time. I did hope I would be able to stay through the meeting, but I cannot. In any case, Agnes, who would now speak, will be with you, so I'm sure that she can also provide any answer that you may require.
Dominic, by the way, I also am so glad after such a long time that you appeared next to Turkish community of research infrastructures. I think this is important because now we are raising the awareness, as you said, like visibility or joining the task forces, being aligned. So such things are critical. I think we need to explain more because as you also know, in all of the countries, member states, we had the problem of value-added tax. And most of our issues concerning the Turkish roadmaps raised from Ministry of Finance rather than TÜBİTAK or the other things. It's exact same problems, exact same issues. So we are not alone, and solving those problems together is also critical. You said that as well. I think our terminology, the language we are using sounds quite alien or Chinese, but the more they come in, they will see that it's actually operational rather than something hierarchical. So I think it's time that you appeared, and I hope to achieve more with our ERIC equivalents, like 6550 and the other consortia preparations that we are doing. It will make the Turkish communities come to your doorstep much easier, much simpler, rather than complicated.
Yes, thank you very much, Murat. I'm also very happy to have been able to speak to you today. I hope that, well, more or less I provided some useful information. I mean, indeed, one of the biggest added value of S3 and of what we have been doing at the European level is not only the facilities that have been incubated, which are very concrete outcome, of course, but it's also creating a community that can understand each other, talk to each other, and learn from each other. Because as you said, I mean, VAT is one example, but there are many other challenges also in developing research infrastructures where we can effectively learn from each other across countries.
Yes. Thank you, Dominic. Thank you, Murat. Thank you, Dominic, for your very clear presentation of S3. And I think it was very useful for our participants and easy to understand the role of S3 and how it works. I think that I get information from our team that we would like to announce a Slido poll for our participants, just to know better their expectations and also the interests, and to serve them better in through our project on our other opportunities. You should just copy screen the code with your smartphone, and then you will access our survey. Is it possible to do that? We should give more time we should give more time our participants to copy the code, because otherwise they will not be able to enter the survey. Yes, please use your smartphones and answer questions which are there. Have you been participating in projects funded under Horizon 2020 research infrastructures? Second question is related Horizon Europe, and now there is more detailed questions about calls, interest in calls. Please don't be shy, answer questions, scan QR code. Yes, we have some participants which have experience in research infrastructures. We have more than 130 participants, so we can wait 1 or 2 more minutes for answers, and then we'll proceed according to to our agenda. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for answering and taking part in our poll. It will be very useful for us in our next activities under our project. And I think now that we can move to Agnès Robin. Agnès is a policy officer in DG Research and Innovation. And we have presentation on European Research Infrastructure Consortia. Eric, very interesting topic.
Thank you, Alexander. And I'm very pleased to be here to explain, to try to explain what is an ERIC. And I will start sharing my screen. Here it is. Let me know if it's fine on your side.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So I'm Agnès Robin. I work with Dominique in the unit Research and Innovation Actors and Research Careers, the unit which is involved in the policy on research infrastructures. And does it work like that? Yes. So what is an ERIC? The ERIC, it's a legal framework. It's a community legal framework that help to facilitate the joint establishment and operation of a research infrastructure of European interest. So an ERIC, in brief, it is a research infrastructure. It's a legal form for a research infrastructure, for a European research infrastructure. It is based on EU law, Article 187. There is a council regulation. So it comes from 2009. It was amended in 2013. And the amendment in 2013 is important for Turkey because it was an amendment to put more or less associated countries and EU member states on the same foot, on an equal foot. Why was this legal framework created? So it comes after a first S3 roadmap where there was the intention to have new European infrastructures. And there was also a workshop under the auspices of S3 on legal issues. And from this workshop, the outcome was that there was likely a need for a specific legal form. Some other legal forms are possible for European research infrastructures. You have, but they have some pros and cons. And in particular, research infrastructure, the mostly well-known infrastructure like CERN, they are intergovernmental organization. So it's very good form for research infrastructure, European infrastructure. It's very flexible framework, but the time to establish such legal form for research infrastructure was quite long because it needs some ratification by each country and it takes by parliament of each country. So it's quite lengthy. So there was the idea to establish a new legal framework. The aim of this legal framework is to firstly have a truly European venture, the spirit of a truly European venture. It must be a legal personality which is recognized in all EU member states. And if an associated country becomes a member of an ERIC, it will be also recognized in this, must be also recognized by this country. It must be flexible enough to adapt to very specific requirements of very specific research infrastructures. It must be attractive enough and some of this attractiveness is granted from some privilege exemption of tax that are allowed at national level for intergovernmental organizations. So even if an ERIC is not an intergovernmental organization in the strict sense, it has some of its privilege. And also, hopefully, a faster process to create than an international organization or intergovernmental organization more precisely. What is the membership of an ERIC? It's not laboratories, it's not research organizations. The member of an ERIC, these are countries, essentially countries. It's also possible to have intergovernmental organizations. But the core membership of an ERIC, typically, these are countries, member states, associated countries, and also it's possible for third countries. A country, of course, may be represented by one or more public entities or private entities with a public service mission. What is important to have in mind is that an ERIC must at all times have at least one member state and two other member states or associated countries as members. When I said that we had in the ERIC, the member states and associated countries are on an equal foot, it's true, but there are some few differences. For example, you cannot have an ERIC with only associated countries, because the idea is that why should the Commission set up a research infrastructure that is not involving one single EU member state? So that's the only reason why we must have at least one member state, but at least three countries, and these three countries are either member states or associated countries. Of course, other third countries, I said, can be members, but keep in mind that the majority of the voting rights in such ERIC has to remain with the member states and the associated countries. Another point where member states and associated countries are not fully on the same, fully equivalent, is that if an ERIC is hosted by a member state, any proposal to amend the status should require the agreement of the majority of the member states that are members of that ERIC. Other than that, member states and associated countries are fully equal in an ERIC. There are some privilege, and I mentioned some privilege. Public procurement is one of these privileges. So, and VAT exemption. So ERIC should be considered as international bodies, organizations, for the purpose of the directives on public procurement, VAT and excise duties. So it means that ERICs are not bound by the procedure of the public procurement directive of the EU. They may set their own procurement rules, but of course, these rules must be based on transparency, non-discrimination, and competition. So ERICs are exempted from paying VAT and excise duty, so that overall the privilege allocated to ERICs. So what are the tasks and the requirements to become an ERIC? So principal task, it's obvious, but it's important to remind that the ERIC is here to establish and operate a research infrastructure on essentially on a non-economic basis. Limited economic activities are possible, but it's not a company, it's really research infrastructure to serve research. There are some requirements to be met. It must be necessary for European research. It must provide value in the development of the European research area, and also significant improvement in relevant scientific and technical fields at international level. So it must have some added value at the European and international level. A key point, it's a requirement to become an ERIC, to provide effective access to European researchers, and that's really essential. And the word effective is also very important. Fourth, it must contribute to the mobility of knowledge and or of researchers within the European research area. And last, the ERIC must contribute to the dissemination and optimization of RTD results. These requirements are assessed when we receive an application for an ERIC. So the first thing that is done, we are calling for external experts, and we will ask them, based on the application for an ERIC, whether these 5 requirements are met. As for associated countries, it's important to keep in mind that what is the applicable law and jurisdiction for an ERIC. Also, it's open to associated countries and to third countries. It's important to remind that the internal functioning of an ERIC for the applicable law is the EU law, and this includes the ERIC regulation, of course. Secondly, the law of the state where the ERIC has its statutory seat, when the EU law does not directly apply. And third, the law of the ERIC itself, its status that are adopted in conformity with the 2 former source of laws, and also the implementing rules of each specific ERIC. When we refer to EU law and for the jurisdictions, we refer to the Court of Justice of the European Communities. This is about litigation among the members in relation to the ERIC, also between the members and the ERIC, and over any litigation to which the community is a party. And finally, community legislation and jurisdictions about dispute between ERICs and third parties. So to set up an ERIC, as already mentioned, you must have at least 1 EU member state and 2 other countries that are either member state or associated countries. So this is a minimum to agree to establish and operate together a research infrastructure. In practice, most of the ERIC application we receive and most of the ERIC already established, they have a much larger membership, but that's a minimum. The member must agree on the status, ruling, governance, IPR, policy, financing. So in the status, you will have all the generic principles on access policy, on data policy, on the governance. Tentative members submit an application file to the Commission, which with the head of independent expert examines whether the conditions of the ERIC regulation are fulfilled. And this is done under a 2-step procedure. The first step will mainly involve this external independent expert to see if the minimum requirements are fulfilled. At this stage, we only need the signature from the host, from the statutory seat of the ERIC. Then we provide some feedback based on the independent expert opinion and on the check of the compliance with the ERIC regulation. And then will come the step 2 application, where at this stage, we expect all signed requests from all members and observers of the ERIC. Then the Commission takes decision to set up the ERIC following consultation of the ERIC committee, which is composed of representatives of all EU member states. Since the regulation was adopted in 2009, the first ERIC was established in 2011. And up to now, I noticed that Dominic's slide were wrong. He was referring to 19 ERICs, but we have now 22 ERICs. We had the last one was Eli ERIC adopted in April 2021. And this covers more or less all the scientific and technical fields. That's not the end of the story. We have currently several ERICs, I think 8 ERICs are in the pipeline, in particular 2 that are already at step 2 and some step 1 currently evaluated. You cannot see here, but I guess I expect that this slide will be made available, and we have the complete list of ERICs, what I've called the ERICs landscape available, and here you have the links that will be made available to you. So you can see how diverse are the types of ERICs now implemented. I would like to mention also that out of the 22 ERICs already in place, actually 20 are prioritized by S3. So they are S3 landmarks. Only 2 have not been prioritized by S3, but were nevertheless established as a European research infrastructure of European interest. And last point on the ERICs, that most of them are actually distributed infrastructure. Dominique, when in his presentation, referred to single site, digital, and distributed infrastructure. And we noticed that the majority of the new infrastructure established as an ERIC are distributed infrastructure. So with central hubs in one or several countries and many nodes in different countries. And this is in particular relevant in the field of environmental and earth science, in the field of health and food, and in social science and humanities. I've lost the actual names of the social science. Social science and cultural innovation. Maybe it's good to have an overview of the participation of associated countries. So here I'm referring to the Horizon 2020 associated countries in the ERICs. And you can see that, just as a parenthesis, United Kingdom is treated as an associated countries currently. So we have two countries very active, very much involved in the established ERICs. These are Norway and the UK. And you can see that they are also hosting each of them 2 ERICs. Then you can see the list of countries, and I would like to refer to Turkey, that is a member as an observer of BBMRI, if I'm not wrong, the research infrastructure on biobanks. I think Murat referred to it formally.
Yes, you are correct, Agnes. That's
Okay,
BBMRI.
good. Because sometimes I'm confused between so many ERICs. Thanks, Murat. And now I would like to speak about, so with these 22 ERICs, we thought that it was good to have a kind of a assessment on how this regulation is implemented. And actually there was a council conclusion in 2018 asking for a ERIC implementation report by 2022. So we tasked an expert group to assess the implementation of the ERIC regulation. And this expert group was chaired by Carlo Rizzuto and delivered a report which has now been published. The findings of the expert group will contribute to the report that we have to provide to the council. And also, this report is also the basis for a consultation process. So there was a workshop, stakeholder workshop on the ERIC by mid-September. Also recently, we presented the findings of the ERIC to the ERIC committee in October last month. And we will continue broader discussion on research infrastructure. And this will include discussion on the ERIC in particular. So we will soon have the S3 days with the launch of the S3 roadmap. There was recently a conference on the European research area under the Slovenian presidency. And here again, once the slide will be made available to you, you will have access to both the link to the ERIC workshop, where you can see the discussion and the presentation, and also the link to the expert group report, ERIC expert group. And I would like just to very quickly give an overview of the outcomes of this assessment by the expert group. So here are the key point from this outcome. That first, they refer to a successful implementation of these 22 new research organizations. And this more or less establish a kind of ERIC systems, which is producing excellent science. And also, that's really important as well, opportunity for training. It is also strengthening the European research area. As I mentioned, most ERICs are distributed. So through the ERIC and the ERIC system, we are connecting hundreds of universities and institutions We are providing international integration of research and also of training from most member states with synergies between EU national or regional resources. So because of the distributed nature of ERICS, it has an integrating role all over Europe between different levels, institutional, regional, national, and European level. So that's really a very important outcome. One of the outcome was that with these 22 ERICS, we can see a paradigm shift from the research infrastructure to integrated research in response to challenges. So that's what we see, that we had individual services by individual research infrastructures, and more we need to have a more integrated research in response to challenge. And the ERICS, the European research infrastructure as a whole, and the ERICS are part of this landscape, will have to address this challenge. There is also the requirement to better translate results better provide solution to the economy, to the society, and to better connect to data production, to the European Open Science Cloud, and also to further develop the global outreach. It doesn't mean that curiosity-driven research is not important. It was the main focus of the development of the S3 roadmap, of the development of the ERICS. It's just in addition to this, we need to pay more attention to research that is addressing global most pressing challenges. So further to these findings, the expert group provided some recommendation because there were a number of issues. I have not presented the slide on the issues because it was quite, there were some critical issues raised by the expert group. And I thought it was more positive to directly present the recommendation related to these issues. The first one is to improve the governance within the European research area of these ERIC systems, because we were in a, let's say, developing phase where, along with the S3 roadmap, we have new research infrastructures. So now they are there, and we need them to better integrate, to better deliver, and to be more efficient, more effective. So we need to monitor that. We need to understand what is going on in these ERICS, and we are lacking data, we are lacking information. So one of our key priorities now is to collect this information to be able to better monitor the infrastructure landscape, and also to have an overview of the ERIC systems, what services, what access is provided by all the ERICs all together. And in addition, as a Commission, we need to ensure that the ERICs are compliant to the ERIC regulation. Secondly, so we will have to collect and use standard data at all levels and to provide a systemic follow-up. So this means that we will need to involve S3, because S3 is very active in monitoring and following up the development of the individual research infrastructure, and this will apply to the ERICs. We also need to involve better the ERIC committees, so the delegates, national delegates representing the EU member states and also the associated countries. And I would like to mention the role of the ERIC forums. I will detail a bit more on that, but the ERICs themselves are organized as a forum, and we will have to link better and to exploit the information provided by the ERICs themselves. Another recommendation is to stimulate and support better the integration between the statutory seats or the central hubs on the ERICs and what is called the periphery. So the different nodes, national, regional nodes, or even for very highly distributed infrastructure, like for example in the field of Earth observation, to really to liaise better, establish better links between the peripheries and the seat, the central hubs of the different ERICs. And in particular, it was important to recognize the role of universities and individual institutional labs in the ERICS. Also, there were issues with the attractiveness of the ERIC to attract the best staff, whether it's managers, technicians, researchers. So the ERIC's employment is an issue. It's EU-wide, and there are some ideas to make it more compatible with the EU-wide entities. Another point is the sustainability of the ERIC systems. That's not restricted. It's not the issue is generic to all European research infrastructures, but of course we will have a specific attention to the ERIC itself, the ERIC system itself, and this has to be addressed to ensure their long-term. We have sufficient long-term planning of public support. That's also some implementation of tax exemption are facilitated. And we have a fair participation to partnerships and service activities. There was also a recommendation of the ERIC forum, but I will come back to that in the next slide, I think. Yes. So I think it's more or less one of my last slides. I hope I'm still on time. So the ERIC forum, it's a network of existing ERICs. It is currently supported by an Horizon 2020 project. So these networks of ERICs aims to strengthen the coordination and networking, so reinforcing the informal ERIC networks and the possible successor framework. It supports organization of specific meetings, thematic workshop. It's really also aiming at exchanging best practice, identifying common challenges and how to address them. I understand the ERIC forum also provides some support to the ERICs in preparation. So it's really important to establish link to the ERIC forum to get some information on how to do in practice, how to develop new ERICs. It has also some activities related to the support of common communication and outreach activities to somehow be act as a single voice for all the ERIC when they are sharing common challenges, and also to become a stakeholders in the different consultation, not only under research infrastructure policy, but all other consultation at large, and that can be very valuable, for example, in the discussion on the missions, on the partnership, and how to establish link with these entities. And here again, I have some. Once you will get access to the slide, you will have access to the link to the ERIC forum. And more or less, I think it's all. In practice, you have some practical guidelines which are under revision, but you still have the practical guidelines available on our website, and you can find information in particular the list of established ERIC at the address that is available here. And here I will stop, and I'm happy to answer to questions, if any.
Thank you, Agnes, for your presentation and for very useful information. I would like to ask if maybe Murat would like to comment or to add something to the presentation.
I think Agnes really described ERICS in a very nice way. Before ERICS, we did not have means to cooperate international organizations in research infrastructures domain, except for like EMBL, few exceptions. So ERICS really did good for that, and we hope to have the Turkish counterpart for ERIC with 6550 and further on. Soon. One of my colleagues already asked a question about joining ERICS. This is a country decision rather than an institutional level. And I think having countries participate in topics force also many institutions on a similar topic to come together and join their forces. For that, I think with Turkish ERIC involvements, we will see a larger landscape of smaller distributed infrastructures coming into the game, Agnes. And for that reason, I think we would have some work to do further on, because with 6550, we will have some of those institutions and research infrastructures already organized and synchronized with European level. But there are still further issues like having the research, for European researchers, international researchers, their intellectual property rights and such. Even at the European level, I'm also a liaison for European University Association on ESFRI. We do have problems of doctorates, for instance, in research infrastructures. You could be winning a Nobel Prize, but your doctorate will not be recognized in an ERIC. Because the PhD degrees and such are part of universities issues. So we do have interesting level strata of regulations that we still need to work on. But I think ERIC maintains a very smooth operation, and I hope to have our institutions join via the governmental system of what we are trying to achieve soon. And work with our colleagues like Agnes. What do you think, Agnes?
So we of course, it's a learning phase. So you cannot, from the very beginning, engage in many areas. And you refer to the recognition of the diplomas and doctorates. And maybe the good news for you is that we, in the unit, now it's not only research infrastructure. In the new unit, since following the restructuring of the DG in April, we have in the same unit people dealing with research infrastructure, but also with research careers and other stakeholders. So that might facilitate some progress on that side, at least I hope. And but what is important is that so you are observer in one ERIC, and I think it's also a very good way to learn about the ERIC and to see how to make it compatible with your own priorities, your own regulation, and how it works. And it could, I think it's very promising start to a further engagement of Turkey in the established ERIC. And of course, you can either join as in a new ERIC under establishment, or any country can join an already established ERIC. At this stage, it's a decision at the level of each ERIC.
I fully agree with you, and I would like to see more of our projects fulfill the criteria for further ERICs.
Yes, thank you very much. So this is one of the objectives of this event, to increase interest of Turkey in participation and to create awareness of opportunities on the research infrastructures and in particular ERIC. Okay, so thank you very much for your contributions. And now we have next speakers, Dimitrios. Dimitrios is going to present calls for proposals. So we are going into now details and opportunities for participation in Horizon infrastructures through calls of proposals. Dimitrios has been working for CERT in Greece for some time, and now he's running innovation company. If I'm not mistaken, TVP Solar, is that correct?
Yeah, I work as an innovation funding manager there. Thank you, Alexander.
Yeah.
And before I go to the details of my presentation, can you share the screen with the results of the poll? It will help me a lot for putting the relevant focus on those topics that are of most interest. So the first one on the top, the last one, the second.
Sorry, I try to do my best, but I think my screen doesn't share the other questions, the question number 1 and question number 2.
I see only the different topics.
Yes, maybe I can reshare it if you have 10 seconds. Is this clear for now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Can you go back to the topics so that I can see? I've noticed the top 2 of them. I would like to check the next 2 or 3.
The problem is that I don't know why, but for now, when I share my screen, I cannot move the questions.
Celine, it's Kemal from Project Team. Let me try on behalf of you. Please close your screen.
Excellent. Okay, so it's 43. I would like to see the third most scientific instruments. Can you go a little bit up? Okay, that's an interesting point for the open access publishing. I didn't expect that it would be so popular. Good, thank you. Okay, I just wanted to get an overview of the level of interest. Let me share my screen. I hope that this is also visible to you.
Yes,
It's excellent.
Presentation. Good, great, thank you. Thank you for being here, and I would like also to thank you for the invitation. I will go through my presentation in the topics of research infrastructure under Horizon Europe that are open under the 2022 call. My presentation is structured in, let's say, 2 parts. The first one is the introductory and an overview of the topics that will be open in 2022. And the second one, I will go through each of the 7 topics that are targeted by this presentation. The presentation itself is quite extensive. I did that on purpose so that you can take it a look after the event, but I will only focus to those topics that were top in your preferences, and I will give a little less attention to the rest so that we can manage with the time. So let me go forward with the presentation, and I would like to share with you this cost and benefit approach. In fact, the company I'm working with as an innovation funding manager has been established thanks to one large research infrastructure in Europe, CERN. One of our co-founders was a researcher at CERN, and he transferred know-how from CERN in order to build our own commercial technology. So this is quite important to stress, not just the funding part from the European Commission, but actually the impact that research infrastructure can have, not only large scale, but also small scale infrastructures like, for instance, testing infrastructures that we use for the certification of our products. And also when I was working at research institute, we could see that research infrastructure that was being built could bring us new research contracts, both EU funding, but also from private sector. So I noticed that Turkey is working really systematically on this direction with the roadmap for large-scale research infrastructure, which is something that can be further expanded through the European funding. So apart from the benefits that you can see on actually attracting funding researchers and students or enhancing networking reputation, you can also have in mind that running a research infrastructure is associated with the operating cost, and this should also be taken into consideration.
Dimitrios, sorry for interrupting you for a second, because I think we have still Agnes with us, because there is a question regarding Eric from participants. Is it possible to join an already existing Eric? I think it was answered already, but Agnes, are you still with us?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, of course it is possible to join an existing ERIC. And normally the procedure is that you have the governance of the ERIC, the General Assembly of Members. An applicant, if a country wants to join an ERIC, should contact this ERIC, and this will be voted by in principle, you have some minimum requirements to join an ERIC. You have to explain what you will provide to the ERIC, and this will be decided by the General Assembly of the ERIC, or whatever is the governance of the ERIC. So it's at the level of, it's treated at the level, once the ERIC is established by the Commission, the membership is directly treated by the ERICs themselves, and we will be informed and we will validate the extension at Commission level. But at this stage, it's at the level of each ERIC.
Thank you very much for this explanation. And now I think we can go back to.
So,
sorry, Dimitrios, for interrupting you.
No. So I can continue now with a very brief overview of the overall call. So there are 4 different call areas and 7 topics overall. The only area where there are more than 1 topics open is the open science area, where there are 4 topics. And among these 7 topics, only 1 is coordination support action. The rest 6 are research and innovation actions. Deadlines, as you will probably all know, are on the 20th of April next year for most of the topics. For Server 01, the call deadline is on the 21st of September next year. The overall budget is close to 200 million euro. And the opening date for the publication of the call will be January 19 for most of the call topics, with the exception of the Server 01, which will be published on June 1st. Now, of course, all the material that I will present, information I will present, are taken by the documents and the portal of the European Commission. However, all proposers, coordinators, or all participants should refer to them as an official, being an official documents. Now, this is the overview of all the topics that are open, will be open in 2022. As you can see, the funding is concentrated in mostly in 3 of them, with the one that tops is the Tech 01.01 for the next generation of scientific instrumentation. And as I saw in the results of the poll, these were also the top 2 topics that concentrated attracted most of the interest of the participants. So the first topic, Dev 0101, it's about the research infrastructure concept development. It has an available budget of around 22 million euro, and 7 projects will be funded in this topic by the European Commission. The next 4 topics are under the open science area. There are 3 of them that are rather horizontal. One focuses on the assessment of research assessment system, another on actually open access publishing, and the third on global standards. And there is one that focuses on the Healthy Ocean mission, in which we have also 2 projects to be funded. Then there is a single project that will be approved under Service 0101, which is about implementing digital services to empower neuroscience research for health and brain-inspired technology via eBrains, and with a budget of 38 million euro. And the last topic with 110 million euro and at least 10 projects to be approved there is research and development for the next generation of scientific instrumentation tools and methods. Now, I have 2 slides with terminology. We went through this quite extensively. I would just like to pinpoint at the research infrastructure of European interest, which reflects these infrastructures that can attract users from other European or associated EU or associated countries beyond the countries that are these infrastructures are located. So these infrastructures should have an interest for other countries as well as also in the European Open Science Cloud, which aims to build infrastructures to provide seamless access to fair data and interoperable services for the scientific community. And this is the area where 4 topics are open. And I would like to remind the participants that fair data reflect the data that can be found, are accessible, interoperable, and can be reused. Now, each of these areas is linked with a destination. The first one is about InfraDev destination, developing, consolidating, and optimizing the European research infrastructure landscape. I think Dominique mentioned also previously that the first phase at the beginning, the research infrastructure were rather fragmented. The recent last decades have been a significant improvement on this direction, but further consolidation and optimization of the different research infrastructures is to be made. And under this destination, the first topic is presented. It's about research infrastructure concept development. Personally, I found this topic quite fascinating and intriguing because it's within the first stages of the actual conceptualization and planning of of the research infrastructure, as again, Dominique mentioned before. Researchers and participants would have the opportunity to propose their own science cases for new research infrastructures and better align on the development of the research infrastructure landscape, so complementarity, and of course the advancement of excellent science and frontier research. New services and access opportunities are among the expected outcomes of this topic, allowing to better tackle both scientific as well as societal challenges. As you can see, the way that I'm presenting each topic, it's first the outcomes as they are presented also in the relevant web page of its topic, and then I'm going through the scope of its topic. So the scope for this concept development research infrastructure is about supporting the development of new concepts for the next generation of research infrastructure of European interest. This can be single or multi-sided, distributed or virtual, and all fields of research can be considered in these new concepts. Major upgrades of existing infrastructures are possible and can be considered, assuming that they have a significant and transformative impact on the existing infrastructure. Proposals for the concept development will tackle all key questions concerning the technical and conceptual feasibility. And then here you can see that the relevant, let's say, TRL of the proposal is close to TRL 3 to 4. So it's not about actually demonstration of or creation of this new research infrastructure, and it's basically on the preparation on this. So proposals are expected to cover all the following aspects: to demonstrate relevance in relation to the European research area, to highlight the research challenges the new infrastructures will make possible to address, including at a global level, to indicate the gaps in the existing research infrastructure landscape that this proposed new infrastructure will cover, and of course the synergies that will have with existing infrastructure, both at European and as well as global level. Proposals are also expected to indicate the potential impact of the new research infrastructure at regional level, not only at European level, but also at regional level. Further on, as you can see, there are quite detailed requirements for this topic. Proposals should provide evidence that the project will effectively identify technologies and develop research infrastructure, being a single site or distributed, identify scientific user communities that will benefit from accessing this research infrastructure and the relevant services, identify governance options for these research infrastructures and strategic approaches for the commitment of the stakeholders and their engagement, develop initial financial plans for the construction of these research infrastructures or the major upgrades to existing ones, and develop plans for an efficient data curation and preservation for the provision of access to data in line with the FAIR principles. And the last part of the scope of this topic, proposals considered just a new component of a research infrastructure are not in the scope of the topic. So you have to have a more holistic approach in this respect. And when relevant, environmental impacts, as well as the optimization of resource and energy use, should be integrated in the concept development of new research infrastructures. Professor Gören mentioned before for Turkey some areas of interest for research infrastructures like renewables, including solar and wind, high performance computing, of the food area, biobanking, and you mentioned also the earthquake monitoring. New infrastructures that may be also included in your national roadmap could find their way also through this topic. Now, we're going to the next destination and 4 topics under the European Open Science Cloud. The aim of the destination is to enable an operational, open and fair EOSC ecosystem with the aim to continue to develop the EOSC in a more cohesive and structured manner so that it becomes a fully operational enabling ecosystem and to lead to a web of fair data and services for science. So the next 4 topics are focusing on open science, on data, open data, and relevant services. The first of them, it's Research Innovation Action with available budget of 6 million euro and 3 projects to be funded, so around 2 million per project. And it's about services and tools to underpin a research assessment system that incentivizes open sciences practices. So actually, our proposals should propose projects that will enable a rewards and recognition system that will incentivize these open science practices. And this system will bring also a new generation of metrics and indicators leading to a culture and system change that will increase the quality and impact, the creativity, and the transparency of and the trust in science. Also, community-led curation and annotations are expected, and the contribution to EOSC partnership as well. I have included 2 links in this slide for open science indicators. There are some relevant publications. This could be monitoring indicators, learning or resource allocation related indicators, as well as some basic information on the open science. Now, this is a list of relevant Horizon 2020 projects that Turkish organization can look for potential partners, and also for organizations that lead existing proposal preparation initiatives in this topic. One of these large initiatives is the EOSC Future, which started last April. Now, the scope of this topic is to changes in the evaluation of research and researchers' performance, the development of relevant federated services that will allow the gathering and monitoring of information and data on both the use and uptake of research outputs. The service and tools should collect data on research outputs, on the usage of EOSC services, on open science practices, and promote the adoption of community-led curation and annotation systems. Related services should be developed. As you can see here, also the use of machine learning, so artificial intelligence, is expected to provide qualitative information that will enrich the meta-information of all research outputs. The tools and services may support research performing and/or research funding organizations, so two types of organizations, in measuring the usage, relevance, and quality and impact of research outputs, thereby providing the necessary data and information for the next generation metrics. So we need to collect this data so that we can perform the assessment. And some kind of flexibility should be allowed to these organizations, or research performing and research funding, so that they can set up their own recruitment evaluation policies and take into consideration differences among scientific disciplines, different career states, etc. Proposals should take into account existing services, tool, and infrastructures in order not to duplicate efforts. So they have to go through a kind of review of existing services, tools, and infrastructures so that they can complement them or enhance them and not duplicate work. And to ensure this complementarity of outcomes, cooperation and coordination with other initiatives and the IOSC partnership is required. Now, the next topic, which attracted some significant interest from the participant, it's about improving and coordinating technical infrastructure for institutional open access publishing across Europe. One single project will be funded. The budget is €5 million for this topic. So you need potential proposers, participants should be well networked to join consortia with good chances of success in this topic. The expected outcome is a robust pan-European network of infrastructures with all necessary relevant service provision that will bring together these non-profit open access publishing initiatives that do not require processing charges for the publication of articles, in order to become an integral part of the European Open Science Cloud, in particular through effective support for the FAIR principles, setting common technical infrastructure standards. There is a large and many other open access initiatives. I put here for Plan S the link for those that are interested to know more. And for open access publications, there is also another link for you to go through more details. The outcome, the expected outcome, is from the perspective of the European Commission, a comprehensive toolbox to implement common standards for technical infrastructure and service provision available in open source repositories and adopted within the network, but also beyond. Interoperable data exchanges, cross-linking among the network and with fair compliant data towards a concept of single point of access to services and content, and of course, contribution to IOSC partnership. The scope of this topic, focusing on it is addressed specifically to non-for-profit institutions that already run open access publishing initiatives, and in particular to institutions like universities, research centers, but also publishing activities of journals and publishing platforms. The scope of the proposals should include the improvement of efficiency, the coordination and technological alignment among the network of institutional open access publishing, to develop and provide the technical specifications to ensure interoperability, interconnection, and improved quality of services. And also proposals shall build on existing and operational publishing services. So existing initiatives should be operating in this topic and the consortia. The proposal should cover each of the following activities: improve the understanding of technologies and services, coordinating development and adoption of common technical solutions, support the implementation of technical specifications required to provide services through EOSC, and the adoption of essential solutions and standards to improve findability, accessibility, interoperability, and reusability, so the FAIR principles of digital objects. There is a requirement for the projects to liaise with Horizon Europe funding initiatives in the ERA work program, and the initiatives are mentioned here. And to ensure complementarity of outcomes, proposals are expected to cooperate and align with the activities of the EOSC partnership, and to coordinate with relevant initiatives and projects that contribute to the development of EOSC. Finally, integration of a gender dimension is not a mandatory requirement for this topic. Now, the second topic of open science is related to fair and open data sharing in support of healthy oceans, seas, coastal, and inland waters. This is one of the two topics that focus on a specific area. This topic focuses on the mission of healthy oceans. Two projects of €8 million will be funded in this under this topic, and there is an additional evaluation sub-criterion to take into account, which is about the incorporation of the necessary coordination efforts and resources with other relevant projects and the EOSC governance structure. The expected outcome for this is seamless interactions between EOSC operational databases or environments, researchers, and other stakeholders, so that they contribute to restoring healthy oceans, to store, share, access, analyze, and process research data and other research digital objects from their own disciplinary across research infrastructure disciplines and national borders. There are plenty of relevant Horizon 2020 projects, not necessarily related to infrastructure, but there are quite a few of them, so that you can see being a potential participant who can participate already or who can lead a project proposal in this topic. Again, the outcome we expected is open and fair data in the new norm for research contributing to this mission, EU-wide sharing of research data, EOSC to grow into a trusted research innovation data space and service platform in Europe that supports interdisciplinary research community, to contribute to the EOSC partnership and other relevant partnerships relating to the restoring of healthy oceans. As far as the scoping is concerned, the overall objective of this topic is to accelerate research innovation under this mission through better access, management, interoperability, reuse, and citation of digital information. So this is very closely related to the FAIR principles. Using the integrating EOSC resources, extending these resources to the relevant marine and maritime domains that are less familiar with EOSC. And this should be achieved through cross-domain strategic use cases of direct relevance to the digital twin of the ocean. I there is a link on this site, the mission areas and the European partnerships supporting this mission area. The use cases should demonstrate the value of sharing of fair and open research data. So there should be some kind of demonstration of the actual value to brought at European level, help to establish data sharing and management practices within the involved communities and across both member states and associated countries, provide feedback to EOSC partnership on the desired future evolution of EOSC from the perspective of course, of the project of the Healthy Oceans mission. Special attention is given to data harmonization, data quality assurance, integration of data collection, data privacy and security, big data analysis, and as well here machine learning methods. Proposals also should foster the creation of user environments that researchers in this field can then use to interact with digital information in the framework of the EOSC ecosystem. Again, in this topic, there is a need to provide for collaboration with other relevant partnerships and synergies with other relevant Horizon Europe activities as well. Research and innovation should build on the results of Horizon 2020 initiatives and projects. The Blue Cloud project and Odessa project are mentioned here, and support the development of the digital twin of the ocean. So no duplication of work. We should consider already established S3 research infrastructure and efforts by relevant cluster projects. Also, to ensure complementarity of outcomes, proposals are expected to cooperate and align with activities of the EOSC partnership and to coordinate with relevant initiatives and projects contributing to the development of EOSC. In particular, some areas of like data interoperability, metadata and vocabularies, the use of persistent identifiers, authentication, authorization, and identification, etc., are required, and coordination with establishing mechanisms are also needed. The next topic is about generating global standard specification and recommendations for open sharing of fair research data, publications, and software. This is the only coordination and support action. One project only will be funded with 3 million euro. I will go rather quickly through this topic because it's very, very specific. And if there are some specific questions, I can go back at the end so that I can save some time. So the overall outcome is to contribute to standards, recommendations, and methodologies developed in alignment with international effort practices. And you will see that this specific topic requires some kind of global approach to take also into consideration activities that are performed at global level. These are a few relevant topics that you might look for those of you that are interested in this topic. The scope is to support the community-driven processes that involve the research community and other stakeholders from across the world. As you can see, again, worldwide approach should be included. And proposals should facilitate and promote the participation of European stakeholders in such international processes. Also, to ensure complementarity of outcomes, proposals are expected to cooperate and align with activities of the EOSC partnerships and coordinated with relevant initiatives and projects. And some projects on the topic are mentioned below. So after this very quick overview of this topic, we shift to a next destination: research infrastructure services to support health research, accelerate the green and digital transformation, and advance frontier knowledge. The aim of this destination is to provide efficient and customized research infrastructure services to drive and enable the transition to a sustainable Europe and a prosperous economy, as well as to provide services be directed to support and effective and responsive health system. So this destination is, as you can see from the topic that follows, focusing on the health area. The topic here will fund a single project, big one, 38 million euro. And it's the topic is about implementing digital services to empower neuroscience research to health and brain-inspired technology via InBrains. The deadline, as I mentioned earlier, it's in September for this topic next year. The expected outcome for this topic is integrated multidisciplinary collaborative tools and services widely serving the European neuroscientific community. A rich collection of multi-level human brain models, atlases, and workforce so that they can contribute to personalized brain medical treatments. There are some rather big also existing projects, quite a few of them that are in this area. So interested Turkish organizations could also look there. As you can see, one Turkish participant, Sabancı University, already participates in both of these projects. The expected outcome also includes comprehensive set of cognitive brain control scaffolds and associated modular, large-sized neuromorphic and neurorobotic facilities. Autonomous and adaptive robotics approaches are also expected, whereas complementarity population of e-brains facilities with multidisciplinary service applications that answer well-identified new neuroscience-related science and technology needs are also expected as well. The integration of e-brains with EOSC is also expected, and better alignment between national investments in neuroscience across Europe are also among the expected outcomes of this topic. The scope of the project proposals under this topic is presented in the top description in two major points. The first is to implement a user-friendly service infrastructure along the principles of infrastructure as a service and platform as a service to widely serve the research communities in the domain of neuroscience, brain medicine, and brain-inspired cognitive technologies. In-depth collaboration with other European research and testing infrastructure is expected to ensure both efficiency but also as well as harmonization. Directly interfacing with the European high-performance computing capacities, and this is also something that might be of interest for Turkish participant, being high-performance computing an area of your interest and one of your strengths. Delivering an efficient Europe-wide service to researchers based on promoting excellence and innovation and supporting users' digital experiments. Deploying an open metrics framework to assess the brain performances, reach the efficiency of the facilities offered. This topic, as it is quite demanding, and the project that will be funded is quite large, close to 40 million euro, is quite detailed in its requirements. I'm not going through all of these. But I guess that it won't much needed because what I see as a major strategy for that kind of projects for most of the organizations is to join a major existing consortia that already work, and I guess a couple of them will work already towards this proposal. The second requirement, the set of requirements for this topic, is to develop, integrate in brains and operate constantly improving open science services applications that respond to up-to-date and upcoming and identified needs of the neuroscientific community. So both current but also future needs. The deployment of complementarity science technology services for regional or national competence nodes, supporting and enriching the cloud-based deliveries and facilitating the sharing and of produced data and use of national resources. So there is a clear link with relevant national initiatives. eBrains should also be open its approaches to other communities beyond neuroscience. For instance, by supporting computer-intensive simulation to identify candidate drugs addressing new diseases in other medical domains. And the financial support to third parties also is also an option to this topic. So competitive calls could be taken into consideration and planned in the project that will be funded in this topic. And with that, we have shifted to the next topic and destination for the next generation of scientific instrumentation, tools and methods, and advanced digital solutions. This is a topic that topped the interest of the participants, and is quite natural, reasonable, because it concentrates also most of the budget, more than half of the budget available for this 2022 call. And it's quite open and horizontal to different application scientific areas and research infrastructure. So it gives quite flexibility for participants to work on different concepts and projects. The destination itself has the aim to develop groundbreaking research infrastructure technologies, including scientific instruments, tools, methods, and advanced digital solutions. The topic will fund 11 projects. It could be more because the range of the project size is between 5 million and 10 million euro. However, in the work program document, the European Commission mentions that they expect 11 projects to be approved. There is an additional eligibility criteria. At least 3 different research infrastructures should be included, each of them being an S3 infrastructure or ERIC, or another research infrastructure of European interest. The topic is about the research and development for the next generation of scientific instrumentation, tools, and methods. And you will notice that it is much closer from all the rest of the topics to the actual industry, to the market, and to innovation. And this is very clear from the outcomes, where the enhanced scientific competitiveness of the European research infrastructure is expected. However, then foundations for the development of innovative companies are expected, as well as increase the technological level of industries through the co-development of advanced technologies for research infrastructures and creation of potential new markets. Integration of infrastructure into local, regional, and global innovation systems is also expected. There is one major European initiative, which is actually the European Intergovernmental Research Organization Forum, which gathers eight very large research organizations that operate large-scale research infrastructures, in which you can refer so that you can probably get some relevant information about the development of new scientific instrumentation, which is part of the activities of this forum. Now, as far as the scope of the topic is concerned, the aim is to deliver innovative scientific instrumentation tools and methods with which advance the state of the art of European research infrastructure, and show transformative potential in the operation of research infrastructures. The related developments which underpin the provision of imposed and advanced services should lead research infrastructures to support new areas of research and or wider community of users. So as an effect of the development of these new scientific instrumentation tools and methods, we expect that the projects would support new areas of research and a wider community of users. Cutting-edge technologies will also enhance the potential of the infrastructures to contribute addressing both policy objectives, but also socioeconomic challenges at European level. The proposals to be submitted in this topic should address all of the following aspects: research and development of new scientific instrumentation, tools and methods for infrastructures, taking into due account resource efficiency, for instance, energy consumption and environmental impacts. Projects should include the technology validation and prototyping. So this means that the TRL should be at least, I would say, TRL 4 or even 5. The training of research infrastructure staff for the operation and use of these new solutions, and the innovative potential of industrial exploitation of the solutions and or for the benefits of the society. Again, here you see that the linkage with the market, with industrial exploitation is really evident. Now, as mentioned in the evaluation criteria, the additional evaluation criteria, the consortia must be built around a leading core of at least 3 world-class research infrastructures, being ESFRI infrastructures, ERICS, or any other infrastructure of European interest. Other technological partners, like, for instance, industry and small medium enterprises, should also be involved, promoting innovation and knowledge sharing through co-development and new technical solutions for the infrastructures. Proposals may also include pre-commercial procurement, subcontracting activities for the competitive development of new specific solutions, and can also support the development of designs, prototypes, and solution testing. Again, as in various previous topics, the integration of the gender dimension in this content is not mandatory. And I think with this, I have gone through all these open topics. I hope that I gave at least an initial food for thought for the participants. I would be glad to respond to potential questions. I try
There's one question which
check.
is quite long waiting for answer.
Well, I don't see any limitation in the number of topics that any participant could participate. There is no such limitation. But of course, it's about the relevance of the specific organization and the different requirements for each of the topics that are being addressed.
Okay. I don't see any other questions. I hope that people which will have some questions can address them to you directly.
One thing that I can add to this, and maybe we may have some short discussion also, if you agree. What I can see is, generally speaking, in Horizon Europe, in the previous framework programs, there are two wide strategies for for joining proposals. The one is to build our own proposal as being a coordinator, which has increased responsibility, and that might not be the case for organizations that are not really experienced on European framework programs, with some exceptions, however. And the second wider strategy that it is more appropriate for not so much experienced organizations is to find coordinators and consortia that build proposals on the topics that are relevant to them, and persuade them that they can bring a real added value on top of their geographical coverage to their consortium and to their proposal, so that they can bring them on board, and this way start having their own experience with European proposals and then European funding projects. So for almost all of these topics, I would suggest that the second, more easy to apply option is followed by the participants. However, for the topic on the development of new research innovation concepts, I would say that if there are ambitious enough Turkish organizations and they have innovative ideas about the next generation of research infrastructure that are also in line with their national roadmap, I would go for them to lead proposals, because it might worth the case of leading the way towards novel research infrastructures. And also on the last topic for the instruments, the research and development of the instrumentation that will be used in research infrastructures, again, there part of the leadership could be undertaken by a research organization, but also from an industrial partner that works on the instrumentation. Maybe not the actual project coordination, but they can have a major say and role in the proposal preparation, but also in the project implementation. That's from my side to wrap up.
There is one more question, Dimitrios.
Where can we find the list of eligible research infrastructures to form consortia from Infratech? Well, these have been mentioned, I think, in the previous presentation, is Esri and Eric. Not the most probably the right person to answer this question. But if you go back to the web platforms of these initiatives, you would see in the roadmaps, you would see this existing research infrastructure. Some updates may also be there.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for your very comprehensive presentation. And I think that Since I don't see more questions, we came to the final stage of our webinar. Thank you. I would like to thank all participants, in particular that many of them stayed with us till the very end of this webinar. Thanks.
Alexander,
Yes.
there is one question. Yeah, this is Murat. There is one question remaining from Leyla Tolun on there.
Yes.
Actually, the research centers do not apply for projects. It's the countries again in the S3 domain. So in that field, the research organizations need to come together and apply via the representing organization like TÜBİTAK into S3 in general. So and having one research center being part of different communities or different topics, it is possible. Like in the case of EMBL, they are part of 4 or 5 projects. But the projects, the research center does not directly get involved with such applications. It's the countries doing that through delegations. And with Bekir's question about consortia, as Dimitros said, let's take, for instance, Open Science Cloud and so on, then ULAKBIM and the others, and so on, the already existing representatives of those platforms on behalf of Turkey need to be part of the consortia, and via them, then the individual institutions or organizations or research groups can join in. So I think that also is the answer more, that how to find those existing organizations, and that's exactly why we are trying to prepare the Turkish roadmap to see our inventory of existing facilities where they are matching with S3 and other organizations in Europe. So at this preliminary stage, it is still timely to go and try to find if your colleagues on the European side do partner with S3 projects, then you could be part of indirectly their consortia as well. So I think, but for those remaining questions, as I mentioned at the very beginning, infra.arges@tubitak.gov.tr infra.arges@tubitak.gov.tr address would answer some of your questions on individual basis for the time going to come, on again certain conditions and studied answers. Thank you, Alexander. Sorry that I wanted to respond to those unanswered questions.
Thank you very much, Murat. Thank you for your contribution.
Alexander,
clarifications.
If I may add also,
course,
I think it is worth clarifying and distinguish between joining S3 or ERICS or joining proposals to be submitted under the calls. So an organization that is not part of S3 or is not participating in ERICS can be a partner in a consortium that submit proposal under the research infrastructure topics of at least on 2022 and 2021.
Yes, thank you, Dimitrios, for this clarification. Important not to mix these two things. Yes.
Thank you.
Perfect. Any other comments from our team? No. If no, I would like to close this webinar, thanking all participants. And I would like to add one more think that, of course, there is a national contact point at TÜBİTAK responsible for research infrastructure, Burak Tiftik, so you can always also direct questions to him, and he will be, I'm sure he will be happy to answer them and help you in participation in research infrastructure program. So thank you very much, and you are encouraged to participate in other events organized by our project. Go to our website and see what is coming next. So thank you very much and hope to see you again. All the best to you and have a nice evening. Bye. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dimitrios.